The city of Veles stood on a green world where silver towers touched the clouds. It was home to both humans and the tall, silver-skinned people known as the Varn. The streets were wide and bright, lined with crystal lamps that never went dark. Merchants called out in two languages, human and Varn, while air transports glided above like quiet birds. The world was peaceful, but beneath that peace lived many small questions about the balance between the two races. Among the humans of Veles was a man named Rian. He lived in a modest home near the edge of the market square. His workshop smelled of metal and oil, filled with tiny glowing parts from machines that once belonged to starships. Ryan was known for fixing anything broken. He spoke politely, kept his prices fair, and rarely raised his voice. The Varn who passed his shop often said the same words about him, a quiet one but steady. Ryan liked the quiet life. He rose early every morning, boiled tea, and started work before sunrise. Children from the nearby human district would watch him as he worked. Sometimes he gave them small gadgets to play with, things he made from leftover parts. He smiled often but talked little. Few knew where he came from. Some said he had once served in a ship crew. Others guessed he was from the human colonies beyond the outer rim. Ryan never confirmed anything. He only said, "The past is heavy. I like to travel light." One day a convoy arrived in Veles carrying members of the royal Varn court. At its center was Princess Elira, the youngest daughter of the High Regent. She came to study human art, culture, and technology. The court believed she was too curious, too friendly toward humans. The Varn nobles preferred to stay distant, believing humans were too fragile and emotional. But Elira disagreed. She had read about humanity's history, about how humans survived worlds that were cold, dry, or wild. She wanted to meet them herself. During her stay, she visited the markets often without guards. Her advisors warned her it was unsafe, but Elira believed safety was not in walls but in trust. She wore a simple cloak and moved among people with open curiosity. That was how she found Ryan. He was bent over a broken service drone, its shell open like a metallic flower. Sparks flashed as his hands moved with care. Elira stopped and watched. The human's movements were calm, his focus deep. There was a strange grace in the way he handled the tools. When he noticed her watching, he looked up and nodded politely. "Do you repair only drones?" she asked. "I repair what people bring," Ryan answered in his soft voice. His tone was humble but not fearful. Elira was used to humans lowering their heads before Varn nobles. Ryan did not. He was respectful, but his calmness carried a quiet strength. She watched him finish the work. The drone lifted from the table, its lights glowing bright again. The owner, a young merchant, smiled and thanked Ryan before leaving. Elira felt a small spark of admiration. She asked if she could see more of his work. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. He showed her a set of tools, small and precise, designed by himself. She asked question after question, and he answered each with patience. When Elira finally left, she said, "Your hands hold peace." Ryan smiled faintly. Peace is a skill, same as repair. It takes work. From that day, Elira visited often. She brought small devices from the palace for him to fix. Sometimes she stayed to talk. They spoke about music, about machines, about stars. She found herself drawn to his silence. It was not an empty silence. It was a silence full of thought. Ryan, in turn, found comfort in her honesty. She spoke without pride. She laughed easily. Unlike many Varn, she treated him as an equal. Slowly, their friendship grew into something gentle and real. Months passed. When Elira returned to the palace, her father, the High Regent, noticed the change in her. She seemed calmer, wiser, as if she had seen something the court had missed. When he asked what she had learned, she said, "That strength does not always speak loud." Her father smiled but said no more. Soon news spread that the princess would be married. Every noble expected she would choose a Varn warrior or diplomat. When the announcement came, the court fell silent. She had chosen the quiet human from the market square. At first, the court thought it was a rumor, but the regent confirmed it himself. Many nobles protested. They said it would dishonor the royal line. They said humans could not understand Varn customs. Elira stood before them and said, "A heart that understands peace is higher than any title." Ryan was summoned to the palace. He came dressed in plain clothes, confused but calm. When the regent asked if he would accept the princess's hand, he bowed his head slightly and said, "If she chooses me, then I will protect that choice." The wedding was simple but beautiful. The halls of Veles glowed with crystal lights. Humans and Varn stood side by side, though many eyes still carried doubt. Illyra wore silver robes that shimmered like moonlight. Ryan wore a white tunic with a small metal emblem he had made himself. When they joined hands, the air seemed to grow still. The ceremony marked the first union between a human and a royal Varn in the city's history. After the wedding, they moved into a small residence near the edge of the royal gardens. Ryan continued his work, though now under royal protection. Illyra spent her days studying diplomacy and science, while Ryan repaired tools for the palace staff. They lived quietly, sharing tea in the mornings and stories in the evenings. Illyra often wondered about his past. He bore small scars on his arms, faint but old. Sometimes she would see him training in the courtyard before sunrise, moving with the precision of a soldier. When she asked about it, he would only say, "Old habits keep the body steady." Though he never spoke of war, there was something in his eyes that suggested memory. It was not pain, but a kind of distant watchfulness. Illyra respected his silence. She did not press him for answers. As months went by, the court slowly grew used to their union. Many nobles realized the princess had not lost her dignity. Instead, she had gained peace. Ryan never tried to lead or command. He remained humble, speaking only when needed. The servants admired him because he treated them with kindness. He fixed things for them without asking payment. Even the regent, once doubtful, began to see his value. "The quiet man holds the storm within," he said one day to his advisors. One afternoon, as Ryan repaired a small defense drone in the garden, Illyra came to sit beside him. The sunlight reflected off her silver hair. She asked, "Ryan, are you happy here?" He looked up and smiled. "Yes, peace is enough." She tilted her head. "You never wish for adventure?" "I have seen enough of it," he replied. "Adventure often leaves things broken." Illyra laughed softly. "Then I'm lucky you like fixing things." He smiled again, and for a moment she saw warmth behind his quiet eyes. Their life continued in that calm rhythm. Every morning began with tea. Every evening ended with stories or music. Yet sometimes Illyra noticed small things that stirred her curiosity. When she dropped a glass once, Ryan caught it before it hit the ground, moving faster than her eyes could follow. When a servant tripped in the corridor, Ryan reached her side in a blink. His body reacted with the precision of a machine. One night, during a mild storm, thunder shook the city. Illyra woke and saw Ryan sitting by the window, watching the flashes of light across the sky. His face looked distant, as if he was somewhere else. She walked to him and placed her hand on his shoulder. "The storm frightens you?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "No, it reminds me of another sky." She sat beside him. "Will you tell me?" Ryan's eyes stayed on the storm. "Not tonight. Maybe another time." The next morning he was cheerful again, as if the night had left no trace. But Illyra could not forget the tone of his voice. It was the sound of someone who carried memories too heavy for words. As the first year of their marriage passed, Veles prepared for a great festival celebrating peace among the stars. Lights filled the streets. Songs echoed from every corner. Ryan joined Illyra in the royal procession, walking beside her in silence. The people cheered. Humans and Varn stood together, waving flags of both worlds. For the first time, Illyra felt that her dream of unity was real. When they reached the central plaza, the regent gave a speech about hope and cooperation. Illyra smiled at Ryan, who stood quietly by her side. He looked peaceful again, as if the storm in his mind had calmed. She thought she understood him at last, a gentleman content with simplicity. But that night, as they returned to their home, Ryan paused outside the door. His expression changed. His eyes scanned the shadows around the garden, sharp and alert. Illyra felt a chill in the air. She asked what was wrong. Ryan said softly, "Nothing for now. Just a feeling." He opened the door, guiding her inside. She tried to laugh off the tension, but she could not shake the thought that her quiet husband was not as ordinary as he seemed. The blade that once rested in peace might still remember its edge. And somewhere beyond the calm city lights, unseen by both of them, a signal flashed in the dark, one that would soon test the peace they had built together. Days passed peacefully in the royal gardens of Veles. The sunlight glowed through tall glass domes, and the air was full of the scent of silver flowers. Princess Illyra often sat beside her husband Ryan as he worked in the workshop built behind their house. The sound of tools, the faint hum of energy from repaired machines, and the calm rhythm of Ryan's breathing filled their quiet mornings. To the world outside, Ryan was the silent royal husband, kind but unremarkable. The court ladies whispered that he lacked the strength of a warrior or the pride of a noble. But Elira never cared for their words. She had chosen him because of his peace. Yet beneath that peace she had begun to sense something unspoken. One morning she entered his workshop carrying a tray of tea. Ryan was bent over a small mechanical bird, its wings broken. He looked up, smiled gently, and took the tea from her hands. Elira watched his movements again. His hands were scarred, but the way they worked was precise and controlled. She asked, "Ryan, how did you learn all this?" He said, "From a teacher long ago. He told me that fixing things is better than breaking them." She smiled. He must have been wise. Ryan nodded but said no more. When she looked closely, she noticed a faint mark on his neck that looked like an old wound. It was shaped like a burn, thin and even. It did not seem like a mark made by an accident. Elira wondered if it came from battle, but she did not ask. That night, while Ryan slept, Elira walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Her people had maps of every known world, yet there were still dark corners of the galaxy where no one dared to go. She thought of the old human stories she had read, about wars fought long before peace was signed. She remembered the tales of the Lost Earth Legion, a force of humans who had once fought across the stars. Some said they vanished after ending the Great War a century ago. Others believed they still existed in secret, protecting worlds that needed help. She turned her eyes back to Ryan. His calm breathing filled the room. For a moment, she wondered if her quiet husband might be more than he seemed. A week later, the peace of Valus was disturbed. Strange signals were detected on the city's outer sensors. The royal guards reported movement beyond the moon's orbit. The High Regent called an emergency council. Elira attended with Ryan beside her. In the great hall, glowing screens showed the shape of unknown ships. They were not from any known alliance. Their design looked old and cruel. The council members spoke in worried tones. One of the generals said, "They are not merchants or travelers. Their formation is too tight. They are raiders." Elira looked at the screens. "Pirates?" The general nodded. "Pirates from the rim sectors. They strike at royal colonies. They hunt for royal bloodlines. If they reach Veles, they will target the palace first." The regent's face grew dark. "Prepare the defense grid. Send warnings to the cities." As the council ended, Elira noticed Ryan standing still. His eyes stayed on the screen. His calm face had changed. There was a sharpness in his gaze that she had never seen before. When she touched his arm, he looked at her and said softly, "They will come soon." "How do you know?" she asked. "Because they move like soldiers, not raiders," he replied. That night, Elira could not sleep. The city was on alert. Lights glowed across the horizon, and airships patrolled the skies. She found Ryan standing in the garden again, his eyes fixed on the stars. The wind carried the sound of distant alarms. She walked to him and said, "You seem too calm." Ryan replied, "Fear changes nothing. Preparation does." She crossed her arms. "You speak like a commander." He gave a small smile. "I listen well." Before she could ask more, the sound of engines filled the air. 3 ships broke through the clouds, dark and silent. Alarms screamed across Veles. The royal guard shouted orders as light cannons fired from the towers. Ryan turned toward the sound and said, "They are testing our defense. The real strike will come at dawn." "How do you know this?" she asked again. He looked at her and his eyes held a kind of distant memory. "Because I have seen it before." The next morning the city shook. The pirate fleet descended in full force. Their ships dropped black armored drones that tore through the streets. Energy blasts struck the palace walls. The sky filled with smoke and burning light. Elira ran to the command room with her guards. The High Regent ordered all civilians to shelters. The defense grid fought hard, but the raiders were prepared. They had technology built to break shields. Ryan stayed beside Elira. She watched him move through the chaos with a strange sense of control. When guards shouted and panicked, he spoke calm instructions. "Seal the east wing. Move the wounded inside. Keep the exits clear." His voice carried authority. The soldiers obeyed without question. In the middle of the command room, an explosion shook the floor. Dust filled the air. The guards formed a wall in front of Elira, but Ryan stepped ahead of them, scanning the hall. His hand went to a small case hidden beneath the table. He pressed a code on its surface. The case opened with a soft click. Inside lay a weapon, a long curved blade made of silver alloy, faintly glowing blue at the edge. Illyra stared at it in shock. "Where did you get that?" Ryan did not answer. He took the blade in his hand, testing the balance. His posture changed. The calm worker was gone. In his place stood someone sharper, faster, stronger. His eyes carried a focus that froze even the guards. "Stay here," he said. "Lock the door behind me." She reached for him. "Ryan, wait." He looked back for a moment. "You once said I fix things. Now I must fix what is broken again." Before she could speak, he stepped through the smoke and vanished into the corridor. Outside, the palace halls were full of battle. The pirates had forced their way in, cutting through guards and drones. They were not wild raiders. They moved like trained soldiers wearing armor marked with an unknown symbol. Their leader, a tall figure in black metal, shouted orders through the comm system. "Find the princess. She is the key. Leave no survivors." Ryan moved through them like a shadow. His blade cut through their armor with silent precision. His body flowed from one strike to another, each movement perfect and controlled. He fought without anger. Every motion was measured. The raiders fired at him, but he moved faster than their aim. The blade flashed, and their weapons fell apart. One of the guards who followed him could hardly believe what he saw. "He is only a human," the guard whispered. Another guard replied, "Then what kind of human fights like that?" Within minutes, Ryan reached the central courtyard. Drones surrounded him, spinning with energy cannons. He crouched low, sliding across the floor as the first shots fired. His blade moved in wide arcs, deflecting the energy beams. He leapt forward, slicing through one drone, then turned and struck another in the same motion. Sparks filled the air, lighting his face in the smoke. When the last drone fell, Ryan stood alone among the wreckage. He looked up toward the night sky. The pirate ship still hovered above, raining fire on the outer city. His communicator beeped. A voice from the royal guard shouted, "The west gate has fallen." "We cannot hold," Ryan replied. "Pull back to the inner courtyard. Keep the princess safe." The guard hesitated. "Who are you to command us?" Ryan's tone stayed calm. "Someone who knows how to survive this." He cut the connection and ran toward the west gate. Every step brought memories rushing back. Fields of battle, burning skies, the cries of men who fought for peace that never lasted. He had promised never to fight again. But promises mean little when the people you love are in danger. By the time he reached the gate, it was chaos. The outer wall had collapsed and the raiders were pushing inside. Ryan jumped onto a fallen pillar and shouted for the guards to regroup. His voice carried like thunder. "Hold the line. Protect the civilians." The guards obeyed. Under his command, their defense grew organized. The Varn soldiers who had once doubted him now followed his orders without hesitation. Together they drove the raiders back inch by inch. Ryan's blade moved like living light, leaving trails of blue fire as it struck enemy armor. When the last raider fell, the courtyard fell silent. Smoke rose from broken walls. The guard stood in awe. Ryan's white tunic was torn, marked with dust and blood, but his eyes were calm again. Illyra arrived soon after with more guards. When she saw the destruction, her breath caught. Ryan stood in the center, his blade glowing faintly. She walked toward him, heart racing. "You fought them all?" Ryan lowered the weapon. "Not all. Some escaped. They will come again." She looked at him in silence, unsure whether to feel pride or fear. The man she had married, the quiet one who fixed broken machines, had just led soldiers and faced an army. His calm face now looked like carved stone. She whispered, "Who are you, really?" Ryan looked at her, then at the broken blade in his hand. "A man who once fought to end wars and failed. I wanted peace, Illyra, I still do." Before she could speak, the alarms rang again. The raiders were retreating, but the main fleet remained in orbit. Ryan turned toward the sky. "This is not over," he said. "They will return with more, and when they do, they will not find the same quiet city." He sheathed the blade and walked toward the command tower, leaving Illyra standing among the soldiers. For the first time, she saw the truth behind his silence. Her husband was not just a craftsman. He was a survivor of wars the galaxy had forgotten. The city of Veles had survived the first night of attack, but fear hung over every street. The tall towers that once shone with white light now stood dim under gray smoke. People whispered that the pirates would return. The guards strengthened the walls, and the palace opened its gates to shelter civilians. Rian spent the morning walking through the damaged districts. He moved quietly among the workers, helping them lift broken beams and repair generators. The people greeted him with deep respect. They had seen him fight and save the palace. Many bowed when he passed, but Rian never accepted praise. He only said, "Help each other. We rebuild faster together." Princess Elira watched him from the balcony. The image of him standing in the courtyard, sword blazing blue, still stayed in her mind. She had loved his silence before, but now that silence carried weight. She needed answers. When he returned home, she met him in the garden. The flowers were covered in dust, yet the air still smelled sweet. Rian placed his sword on the stone table. It was cracked near the hilt. He began to polish it slowly. Elira asked softly, "You said you once fought to end wars. What war was that?" Rian looked at the blade. "The last one fought by my kind. We called it the War of Remnants." "I have read of it," she said. "It was fought before our alliance began." He nodded. "Yes, humans were soldiers then. We fought across the stars to end what others began. When it was over, the survivors made a vow. They would leave the armies, hide their weapons, and live in peace." She stepped closer. "You were one of them." Rian did not answer at first. Then he said, "I was young. I thought peace would come by fighting harder. I learned that peace is not built by strength but by the will to stop using it." Elira felt both pride and sadness. "And now you are forced to fight again." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes peace needs a shield before it can breathe again." Before she could reply, a messenger drone arrived. It carried a signal from the High Regent. The pirates were gathering again. Their ships had pulled back only to regroup. The next wave would strike by nightfall. The royal army was ready, but their weapons could not match the pirates' technology. The council needed Rian's help. Elira followed him to the command center. The great screens showed enemy ships surrounding the planet. Their engines glowed red like burning coals. The regent turned toward Rian and said, "You have seen their tactics. What must we do?" Rian studied the data. "They are using mirror signals to hide their movement. If we blind their signal core, they will lose control of their drones." The regent frowned. "Our fleet cannot reach that close," Rian said. "I can." The council chamber fell silent. Elira's voice trembled. "You cannot go alone." "I will not be alone," Rian said. "I will take a small team. We will strike from orbit before they reach the surface." The regent gave him a long look. "You are a human craftsman, yet you speak as a commander." Rian replied, "Because I have seen what happens when fear leads instead of reason." After a short pause, the regent agreed. "Very well. Take what you need. Bring our people home alive." Rian prepared in silence. He repaired his cracked sword, reforging the blade with tools from the palace armory. Elira stood nearby, watching the light reflect from the metal. When he finished, she said, "You still hide something?" Rian looked at her. "Only the part of me I hoped would never wake again." Before leaving, he handed her a small silver ring. "If I do not return, this will call my beacon. It will lead you to safety." She held it tightly. "You will return. I believe that." As the sun set, Rian and his team boarded a small interceptor ship. The engines roared to life and they rose above the city. The view of Velis from the sky looked both beautiful and broken. Rian watched the light fade behind them. The flight through space was tense. The pirates' fleet hung above the planet like dark mountains. Their main ship, a massive vessel with crimson engines, pulsed with power. Rian guided the interceptor through debris fields and avoided enemy sensors. The other soldiers followed his commands without question. His calm voice guided them through danger after danger. When they reached the edge of the enemy fleet, he said, "Stay low. Cut the engines." We drift in. They floated closer in silence. The pirates' ships formed a wall of steel and shadow. Rian's eyes never left the radar. When a patrol drone passed too near, he whispered, "Hold steady." The team obeyed. The drone moved on. At last, they reached the signal core, a small station linked to the main ship. Rian suited up, fastening his armor and sword. "Once I'm inside, keep the ship ready. If I fail, destroy the core from outside." One of the soldiers said, "That would kill you." Rian's tone was steady. "Then make sure it works." He left the airlock and drifted toward the station. The cold of space pressed against his suit. His breathing was calm and even. When he reached the outer hull, he attached magnetic grips and began to cut through the wall. Inside, the station was quiet. Red lights flashed along the corridors. Pirate crew members moved between control rooms. Rian moved like a shadow. his blade flashing only when needed. Each strike was precise, never wasted. He reached the central chamber and found the control node. A tall pirate captain turned to face him. The captain's armor was dark with streaks of crimson light. His voice came through a metallic mask. A human soldier. I thought your kind vanished. Ryan raised his blade. Some of us chose peace. You chose greed. The captain laughed. Peace is a dream for the weak. Ryan moved first. The fight was swift and brutal. Sparks filled the room as metal clashed with metal. The captain was strong, but Ryan's movements were faster, his strikes cleaner. He ended the battle with one sharp motion, breaking the pirate's weapon and disabling his armor. He turned to the console and began his work. His hands moved quickly across the controls. The signal core pulsed red, then dimmed. Outside, the pirate fleet began to drift. Their drones froze midair. On Valus, the alarms fell silent as the attack stopped. In the command center, Elira stood beside her father. What happened? She asked. The regent replied, Their systems failed. Someone cut their control. Elira's heart knew who it was. Ryan finished setting the explosives on the signal core. He opened his communicator. Mission complete. Pull back, the team's voice came through. We see the blast charge. You have 90 seconds. Ryan looked around the ruined room. The body of the pirate captain lay motionless. He took a deep breath and started toward the airlock. The floor shook beneath him as the charges armed. The lights flickered. He reached the edge of the hull and launched himself into space, just as the explosion tore through the station. Fire spread behind him like a storm. The blast wave threw him off course. His suit alarm screamed. On the interceptor, the soldiers shouted through the radio, We lost his signal. Elira waited in the command center, watching the radar. Her heart pounded. The regent placed a hand on her shoulder, but she barely felt it. Minutes passed before a faint beacon appeared on the screen. He is alive, she whispered. The soldiers retrieved him from the debris field. His suit was cracked, his arm wounded, but he was breathing. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he asked was, Is the city safe? Elira smiled through tears. Yes, you saved them. He closed his eyes again, exhausted but peaceful. Back on Valus, people filled the streets with lights and songs. The danger had passed for now. The pirates' fleet broke apart and fled into the deep void. The name of Rian spread across the city. Some called him the Quiet Blade. Others called him the Human Shield. Ryan never liked any of those names. When he recovered, he returned to his workshop as if nothing had changed. He repaired tools, helped workers, and greeted neighbors with the same soft smile. Elira often sat beside him, studying his calm face. You risked everything, she said one evening. Why did you do it? Ryan replied, Because I promised to protect peace. I made that promise before I met you. Now it means more than ever. She took his hand and said, You do not have to face everything alone. He looked at her with quiet warmth. I never am, Elira. You are my peace. For a while the world stayed calm again. The sky of Veles cleared and the lights of the city shone bright once more. But deep in the stars, the remnants of the pirate fleet sent one last message to their hidden allies. They spoke of a human warrior who had destroyed their core, a soldier from the lost age of wars. The message spread like fire across the void. New eyes began to turn toward Veles, and far away, beyond the edge of known space, an old enemy heard that name and whispered it again. The quiet man of Veles had drawn his blade. The legend of the Lost Earth Legion was alive once more. Veles had returned to calm, but the calm was fragile. The streets were alive with humans and Varn working together to repair what had been broken. Cranes lifted debris from shattered buildings, while teams cleaned up the fallen drones. From above, the city looked alive again, though the scars of battle remained visible in broken walls and burnt streets. Princess Elira walked with Ryan through the royal gardens. Flowers had started to bloom again, their colors brighter against the dark soil where smoke had once fallen. She looked at him carefully. Ryan moved with his usual calm, adjusting a broken fountain pipe with quiet skill. The court and palace workers often whispered about his strength and courage, but Elira now understood that his true power was not only in his hands. It was in the way he thought, how he planned, how he never panicked. Ryan, she began, yesterday when you led the soldiers, I saw something in you I did not understand. You fought like someone who has done it all before. He paused, wiping his hands on a cloth. Because I have. Long ago, before I chose this life, I fought in wars that spanned many worlds. Alira's eyes widened. I had read about the Lost Earth Legion, the humans who disappeared after the Great War. Were you part of them? Ryan nodded slowly. I was one of many who survived. We swore to vanish, to leave the fighting behind. Peace became our promise. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. Then why did you not tell me? Because some parts of the past are heavy, he said softly. I wanted to build a life without carrying that weight. With you, I found peace that did not need a weapon. But when danger came to your city, I could not hide behind silence. Alira looked at him for a long moment. Her heart ached with pride. She had married a simple human, someone who repaired machines and fixed broken things, yet she now saw that he carried the legacy of centuries of courage. The quiet man she had chosen was no ordinary human. The regent invited Ryan to the council chamber. You fought bravely, the regent said. Our people owe their lives to you. Tell me, are humans like you common? Ryan shook his head. No. We are few, and most of us prefer peace. My kind fights only when necessary. The council was silent. Even the Varn generals who had doubted his skill before looked at him with respect. The legend of the Lost Earth Legion was not just stories. It was alive, walking among them quietly, blending in as a craftsman yet holding strength unmatched. After the council, Ryan returned to the workshop. Alira followed. She watched him move among tools and machines with calm efficiency. Do you ever regret the past? She asked. Ryan paused. Sometimes. Wars leave marks on the soul, but I also learned that strength is not in the fighting. It is in standing when others fall. She smiled. Then you were stronger than any of us imagined. For days, Velis stayed peaceful. Ryan trained with the palace guards, teaching them not only fighting skills but also discipline and calm under pressure. He never sought praise. He wanted only to prepare the city for the future. Alira watched, learning that heroism was often quiet and unseen. One evening, while walking through the garden, she asked, Do you ever think the pirates will return? They may, he said. But if they do, we will be ready. She stopped. Do you mean that you alone will face them again? Ryan looked at her with steady eyes. I will not face anything alone. You, the guards, and the people will stand with me. Humans are strongest when they protect what they love, and so are Varn. Alira felt a warmth in her heart. She understood why the people had called him the human shield. Not because of weapons, but because of his courage and his will to protect. The next week, a message arrived from a distant system. Another human settlement had been attacked. The pirates had begun forming alliances with unknown forces. The High Regent called an emergency meeting. Ryan was asked for advice. He studied the reports carefully and suggested a plan that no Varn general had considered. Instead of chasing them across space, we must secure the colonies, he explained. We build defense stations and train local forces. That way the pirates cannot surprise us. They will not find easy prey. A Varn general asked, And what if they attack here first? Ryan smiled faintly. Then we will meet them together, with all who defend this city ready. The regent nodded. Your wisdom matches your courage. The humans of legend may have been few, but one among us is enough to teach the value of strategy and patience. Alira felt pride in her chest. The quiet human she married was not only strong but wise. She realized that courage could take many forms. The courage to fight, to plan, and to protect those who could not protect themselves. That night, she and Ryan sat on their balcony. Stars sparkled above, calm and distant, but the thought of danger lingered in the back of her mind. Do you ever fear? She asked. Ryan looked at the horizon. Fear is natural, but it should not rule us. I fight not because I am not afraid, but because I care for what is worth protecting. Alira leaned against him. Then I understand. You fight for peace, not for glory. Yes, he said quietly, and peace is worth every effort even when the world does not know. Days turned into weeks. The city slowly repaired itself. Children played in the streets, laughing despite the scars of the attack. Markets reopened. The Varn and humans worked side by side to rebuild homes and businesses. Alira watched Ryan as he helped a group of workers fix a broken water supply line. A child tripped and fell into the mud. Ryan was there before she could even move, lifting the child gently and brushing him clean. His actions were quiet, simple, yet filled with care. She realized then that heroism was not always loud. Some heroes walked silently, working with their hands, their minds, and their hearts. Ryan had saved not only the city, but the belief of the people that humans and Varn could stand together. One morning, a young Varn soldier approached the workshop. "Princess, may I speak with your husband?" Illyra nodded. The soldier bowed. "Sir Rian, your name is known across Velis. Everyone speaks of how you fought, but none know who you are. May I ask you to tell them?" Ryan shook his head. "My deeds are not for praise. Teach the people courage and skill, not stories of one man." The soldier bowed again and left. Illyra watched him go. She understood Ryan better than anyone. His strength was quiet, his bravery hidden behind calm words and gentle hands. The next day, Ryan trained the palace guards in new techniques. They practiced movement, discipline, and observation. He emphasized patience and awareness. He taught them to protect without fear, to act with intelligence, and to stand firm when danger came. Illyra joined the sessions, learning alongside the soldiers. She watched Ryan correct a guard's posture with a soft touch. "Strength is nothing without control," he said. By evening, the palace was calm. The sun set over the repaired towers. Illyra sat beside Ryan in the garden. "Do you ever miss the days before peace?" she asked. He shook his head. "I do not miss the fighting, but I remember it, because it taught me what is worth protecting. Without that memory, I would not know the value of peace." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Then we are lucky. Because you are here," he held her hand. "We are both lucky. Peace is easier to protect when it is shared." Even as they spoke across the stars, new signals appeared. Small fleets moved quietly through uncharted space. The pirates of the Outer Rim were forming alliances with others. They had learned of the quiet human who fought with skill and wisdom. Their hatred grew, but so did the legend of Rian. For now, Velis remained safe. But Illyra knew that the quiet streets, the repaired towers, and the calm gardens were only temporary shields. The real test was not over. Yet in the heart of the palace, Rian remained calm. His quiet strength inspired all who saw it. The soldiers, the citizens, and even the Varn began to understand that humanity's true power was not only in weapons, but in courage, resilience, and the willingness to protect what one loved. Illyra realized that the man she had married was not just her husband. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that one person, quiet yet steadfast, could change the course of the future. And far beyond the peaceful city, the galaxy began to whisper of the human who had drawn his blade for peace, and of the Varn princess who had trusted him above all others. Velis was safe for now, but the story of Ryan was only beginning. The city of Velis awoke to the calm after weeks of tension. The streets were busy with humans and Varn alike, rebuilding what had been broken and restoring the life that the pirates had tried to steal. The sun glinted off repaired towers and crystal lamps, and the air smelled fresh with green gardens and the scent of water flowing through clean fountains. Princess Illyra stood on the balcony of their home, watching the people below. She saw workers lifting beams, children laughing while chasing small drones, and soldiers teaching civilians to use basic defense systems. The city had survived because of one man's quiet courage, yet she knew the peace was temporary. Danger still moved beyond the stars, and the whispers of enemy fleets reached even the edge of Velis. Ryan joined her, moving as quietly as always. His hands were clean from his work in the workshop, but his eyes carried the weight of responsibility. Illyra turned to him. "Do you ever feel that danger will come again?" Ryan nodded. "It will, but we cannot wait for fear. We prepare, and we act when necessary." Illyra's gaze followed him down to the streets below. "And if it comes tonight, then we will face it together," he said. His voice was calm, steady, full of certainty. The High Regent summoned Rian to the council once more. Reports had come from distant sectors that new pirate ships were gathering. Unlike before, they were better armed, more coordinated, and they had learned from their last failure. The council debated strategies, but no plan seemed certain. Rian spoke last, his calm voice cutting through the noise. "The pirates rely on speed and surprise. They will try to scare us again. But we have learned from them. We will set defenses not only on the ground but also in space. We will divide their attention. A small strike team can disrupt their fleet while the main forces protect the city. It is precise, not reckless. It saves lives and stops destruction before it spreads." The council was silent for a moment. Then the regent nodded. "Very well. Prepare your team, Rian. We follow your plan. Illyra watched him leave the room. She could see the determination in his every step. The calm human who repaired machines and spoke little had become a symbol of strength. That evening, Ryan gathered a small team of soldiers and skilled engineers. They boarded interceptor ships, leaving Velis behind under the protection of the palace guards. Illyra stayed behind, carrying a small communicator and a silver ring that Ryan had given her. It was their connection, their bond in case the worst happened. The journey to the pirate fleet was tense. The dark void of space stretched infinitely around them. Ships moved quietly, following Ryan's careful calculations. He navigated through asteroid fields and debris, avoiding detection. His team moved as one, following every command with trust and precision. When they reached the pirate fleet, Ryan's plan began. A small detachment struck from one direction, drawing attention, while Ryan and a few others moved directly to the fleet's command ship. The enemy was unaware of the true threat approaching. Inside the command ship, the pirates were preparing to attack again. The captain, a tall figure in black armor, had received reports that the human who destroyed their previous core was coming. He laughed, thinking that one human could not defeat an entire fleet. Rian and his team moved silently through the corridors. Each step was measured, each movement precise. He had studied the layout and knew exactly where to go. His blade, the same silver alloy glowing faintly blue, was ready. Every motion was confident and controlled. When they reached the central chamber, the captain stood waiting. "You return," he said, his voice calm yet filled with malice. "One human cannot stop us again," Ryan replied quietly. "I am not just one human. I am every life that will not fall today because I act." The battle began. Sparks flew as the captain's weapon clashed with Ryan's blade. The fight was swift, each movement deliberate. Ryan's team disabled the control systems, cutting the fleet's coordination. Drones and ships became confused, moving randomly as Ryan fought with calm precision. The captain was strong, but Ryan's skill, strategy, and control proved greater. He disarmed the captain, forcing him to retreat. Outside, the fleet faltered. The small strike team attacked the remaining ships, disabling engines and communications. The pirates had no choice but to retreat. Velis remained safe, and the city below did not even know the danger had reached the skies. Rian returned to his ship, his armor marked with scratches, but his spirit steady. The team congratulated him, but he only nodded. "We did what needed to be done. There is no need for praise." When they returned to Velis, the city celebrated. People filled the streets cheering for the quiet human who had saved them. Varn and humans alike honored him, though he never sought the spotlight. He returned to his workshop, sitting among tools and machines as if nothing had happened. Illyra met him there. She held his hand and said, "You did more than anyone could imagine. You saved all of us," Ryan smiled softly. "I only did what I could. Courage is not in fighting, but in protecting what matters." She looked at him with admiration and love. "You are more than a craftsman. You are the heart of the city." Ryan looked down, quiet as always. "I am only a man who wants peace. The rest is a chance to act when needed." Days passed and Velis returned to normal life. The city streets were filled with laughter, markets reopened, and the gardens flourished. Yet the story of the quiet human spread beyond Velis. Across distant worlds, people whispered of the man who had fought and protected without seeking glory. The High Regent called Ryan to the palace once more. "Your actions have changed how we see humans," he said. "Your courage has shown us that strength is not in pride or power alone, but in the will to protect." Ryan nodded. "Peace and courage are stronger together. That is the true power of any being." Illyra stood beside him, proud and grateful. She had chosen a quiet human, but now the whole galaxy knew the value of that choice. In the following weeks, Velis strengthened its defenses with Ryan's guidance. The city was ready for any future threats, but more importantly, the people were prepared to act with courage, intelligence, and unity. Humans and Varn worked side by side, learning from one another. One evening, Rian and Illyra walked through the garden. The moon reflected in the fountains and the air was cool. Illyra looked at him and asked, "Do you ever regret choosing a quiet life?" Ryan shook his head. "No, peace is what I wanted, but I will always act when it is needed." She smiled. "And you have shown that even one quiet human can change the fate of many." Ryan's eyes were calm, but there was a quiet pride in them. I only acted for those I care about. That is all anyone can do. Elira held his hand. Then I am lucky to be with you. And Velis is lucky too. From that night onward, the city of Velis remembered the quiet human who drew his blade not for conquest, but for protection. The legend of Ryan grew quietly among humans and Varn alike. Children told stories of the brave human who saved the city. Soldiers trained with the lessons he had taught. And the palace learned that true courage could wear a quiet face, move silently, and still change the course of history. Ryan returned to his workshop, fixing machines, repairing tools, and living the life he had chosen. The blade that had been his companion in battle rested safely in a case, polished and ready, but only for when it was needed again. Elira often sat beside him, sharing tea and stories. They spoke of the stars, of distant worlds, and of the hope that humanity could offer. She no longer worried about what lay beyond the city. She had learned that courage, wisdom, and love were stronger than fear. Velis flourished, protected not only by walls or weapons, but by the quiet human who reminded all that peace was worth fighting for. And far across the galaxy, those who had learned of Ryan's deeds knew one thing. When a human stands for what is right, no force can easily defeat them. Ryan looked at Elira one evening as the sun set over the repaired towers. Peace is fragile, he said softly, but when people act together it lasts. Elira smiled. Then let us act together always. He took her hand, calm and steady. Always. And so the quiet human continued his life, a craftsman in peace, a warrior when needed, and a symbol of hope to all who witnessed his courage. The story of Ryan and Princess Elira became a tale told for generations, reminding every heart that courage does not need noise, that love strengthens resolve, and that even one human, quiet and calm, can protect a world. Velis thrived, humans and Varn united, and the galaxy remembered that peace was strongest when guarded by the brave, the wise and the quiet.